Part 2 opens up with Kazuya taking out Bekdo-san with 2 hits. Then Michelle takes down an oversized Ganryu in 1. This is one of the problems with the film. Not much time is actually spent with fights, and most fights are over in 1 or 2 hits. Lee watches over the fights with a bunch of clone women, while Lei quietly sneaks off to infiltrate the... Are you really surprised you got seen after?
Stop there! Are you a participant in the competition? What are you doing? I'm sorry, I must have gotten lost. Don't lie to me!
Ooh, shit. So after brutally murdering a man who was just doing his job, Jack explains to Lei that he's looking for Dr. Bosconovich in the hopes of curing Jane's illness. Meanwhile, Kazuya juggles Michelle, but she won't give up because she wants revenge on Heihachi for the destruction of her village. Kazuya just backhands her and goes to finish her off when Jun arrives to stop him. Jack and Lei come across a big door and Jack shows off his elite hacksaw skills and opens the door. Lee sees this on the security cameras and orders that the androids be sent after them and the experiments be unleashed into the field, despite being told that Nina and Anna are still out there. The experiments turn out to be dinosaurs. Not just that, invisible dinosaurs. Jack and Lei meanwhile get attacked by 3 prototype Jacks, but there can be only 1, so they dispatch the trio and Jack sustains a minor arm injury in the process. The injury allows Lei to finally cotton on to the fact that Jack is a robot. You know, just in case his size, lack of emotion, hacking I-beams and inhuman physical strength weren't enough of a tip-off. Back with Kazuya and Jun. Jun goes off on a pointless lecture, going on and on about the darkness inside him consuming him, but then she senses the dinosaurs.
There's some kind of life nearby that's violent and out for blood.
Do you sense it?
No, she can taste it. What do you think? Jack and Lei enter the lab and get attacked by Roger the boxing kangaroo. But the fight is interrupted when Bosconovich shows up. Nina and Anna meanwhile are fighting, with some of the backstory from the games being given an exposition. So throwing a knife at someone is cowardly, but shooting them with an AK in their sleep isn't. Got it. Anna gets attacked by a dinosaur and... Well, that didn't happen in the game. But they aren't the only ones getting attacked.
This feeling, it's all killing. No remorse.
I always thought animals killed so they could eat, not for the thrill of the kill. Jun and Kazuya get ready to fight and we cut away. Jack explains that Bosconovich created him for the Russian military, but he was created with a conscience because the doctor couldn't bear to create a soulless killer machine. The doctor says that he can help Jane and that Roger was a test for the dinosaurs, which leads one to believe that the dinosaurs are supposed to be Alex from the games. You know, the boxing velociraptor. So Kazuya and Jun fight off the non-boxing Alexes while Lee watches from the control room.
What good is Tekken? It's an ancient voodoo. Against real adversaries like Rex, it's worthless.
Okay, 1. Tekken means Iron Fist, and is also the name of the tournament, neither of which are ancient voodoo. And 2 is Alex, not Rex. I'm willing to let the last one slide because it could just be a translation error, but I don't know.
This is going to fundamentally change the balance of the world's military powers. Rex is the perfect commando for ground-level guerrilla combat.
Or it could just get shot in the face as soon as it's deployed. Seriously mate, until you can create velociraptors with AK-47s, you aren't changing anything.
And I will be the one at the helm, controlling the Mishima conglomerate, and thus ruling the entire world.
How the hell does that work?
Father, this is what it means to be the strongest in the world.
No, having the greatest physical strength is what it means to be the world's strongest. Oh, and all those things Lee just said and I just commented on, he says them all immediately, one after the other, proving that Lee is in fact a fucking idiot. One actor attacks Kazuya, but he does this.
Fatality.
He dispatches 2 more, and the last is all like, fuck this shit, and flees. Oh, and June goes on about the darkness again. Lee tries to fight Kazuya, but as with everyone else in the film, gets downed in 1 hit. And then again by Heihachi. Kazuya and Heihachi face off, but Heihachi's actually a worthy opponent and doesn't go down in 1 hit. Lee has a mental breakdown because he's such a pussy and murders all of his clone women. He says that he's going to be the sole inheritor no matter what anyone says, and then sets off a self-destruct with the word "cautions" displayed on screen. Then he goes proper sick.
I'll never give it up! Not to anyone!
Back at the lab, the group hears the alarm and they head out to the emergency sub, which we'll see later on that no one else is using. Oh, and they just bail Roger, leaving him to die a horrible fiery death. Jun interrupts Kazuya and Heihachi's fight and says this.
Why would someone as powerful as you throw your own son into the canyon?
Didn't he already explain that?
Lions push their cubs over a cliff and raise only the ones that climb back up.
Yeah, he did. Heihachi goes on and on about justice and how he's going to destroy the world so a new one can be built. Seriously, what is he, a Final Fantasy villain?
My Tekken will create the destruction of the devil and the renewal of the gods.
What the fuck does that mean? His Iron Fist will create the destruction of the devil? And what gods? There are no gods in Tekken.
No one has that kind of right. What would you have done if he'd been killed?
My son is too strong. And if he had been defeated, I was prepared to end my own life.
Why? What does Kazuya have to do with his plan? He just said his own Iron Fist would do everything. Kazuya's death would have no impact on this. Meanwhile, Lee goes boom in a single completely vertical explosion which I'm not sure could even exist. Meanwhile, underground, a door starts to close before Lei's group can reach it, so Jack sprints and holds it open. Why do you have blood? Wait, he has the Japanese voice of Solid Snake. And Metal Gear's bleed? Ah, so Jack's the new model of Metal Gear. It all makes sense now. They manage to get through before Jack gets bisected by the door.
Dad, no!
I know now why you cry.
They manage to escape as Jack goes offline.
Farewell. When I come back next time, I will be human for you.
Well, that was morbidly depressing. Outside, Kazuya and Heihachi continue their fight despite the raging fire and the earth opening up. Kazuya beats his father down and is about to throw him off a cliff when Jun stops him. He turns and starts to strangle her for interfering. About bloody time.
You're a fool. Why are you risking your life for a man you'll never know?
Never know. You're wrong. I was injured just like you were.
No, you weren't. But then we have, you guessed it, another flashback.
The baby rabbit doesn't hate the bobcat. The bobcat just killed the rabbit so that it could eat.
It's all killing. No remorse.
I know the rabbit wasn't happy to get eaten, but rabbits are gentle creatures and would never want to be able to fight a big bobcat.
Jun's words allow Kazuya to fight off the devil's influence, but Heihachi attacks again. Jun takes a blow for Kazuya and the cliff they're on collapses. Lei surfaces in time to see the other fighters show up, including Michelle being carried by Paul, and Nina who somehow got away from Alex. Kazuya then walks out with Jun in his arms while Heihachi escapes in a jet and we see the island explode. We then cut to some time later. Could be a little more specific and say 5 years, but okay. We see Jun in the middle of the woods when her son Jin shows up. He happens to look exactly like Kazuya, but there's no explanation of what happened to him. Jun senses something that's likely to be Olga, who later attacks her and causes her to go missing, but she passes it off as nothing and walks back with her son as the credits roll. Now, the film doesn't have an epilogue scene to explain what happens to everybody afterwards, so I'm just going to guess that Lei gets out with the evidence, and this coupled with the destruction of Heihachi's island and the death of his adopted son under questionable circumstances leads to his company's stock plummeting and eventually going out of business, but that's just me. Speaking of me, what are my thoughts on Tekken the motion picture? On its own, there were some pretty dumb moments, and the other fighters doing nothing throughout was a big letdown, because even if you're not familiar with the games, you have to have some interest in the backstories of these other characters, especially a guy in a Jaguar mask. There isn't all that much fighting, and when they do fight, it's usually over in 1 or 2 hits. Also, the ending left a lot to be desired. I feel that a 12-episode anime series could have been a better way of doing this, since it would have allowed more time for fights and more time to explore the characters' backstories. I can't imagine anyone who's not already familiar with the source material to be very interested in this adaptation. Unless they're just in it for Anna's tits. But what are my thoughts on it as an adaptation? Well, that's where the next part comes in.